that making will is in fact highly recommended in Islam in ordinary situations. But if there are risks of several types of risks, inshallah we'll discuss in the next slide, then making will become wajib. In itself, it is recommended, but in several circumstances, it is wajib. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Ma yanbaghi limri'in Muslim." It is not appropriate for a Muslim an yabita laylatan illa wa wasiyatuhu tahta rasih, that a person sleeps while his will is not under his pillow. Means while his will is not ready. So when we sleep, our will should be ready. Okay. Next slide, please. Next. Yes. Who cannot make a will? If someone is underage, that person cannot make a will. Underage here means less than 10. Those who are 10 plus, they can make will. However, their will be only acceptable if they are making for their relatives, for their blood relatives. Apart from that, their will not be for their blood relatives or for some charitable causes. For example, a 10-year-old child, he owns, for example, some property and he is dying, he is leaving this world. He can make or she can make will only for their blood relatives and for charitable causes. But for other people, they cannot make any will. But of course, if they are 15, they can make will independently. Those who are mentally impaired, they cannot make will. The one who commits suicide. So if a person commits suicide and he is in hospital, he cannot make will. And if he makes any will after attempting suicide, that will is not going to be valid. Because it means that this individual, there is something wrong with that individual, probably psychologically, mentally, he is too depressed. That's why he was committing suicide. So if he's making will, probably that is under pressure of someone or something. So Islam says no. That will not be accepted. Yes, who must make a will? This is very important. The one who has debts. So if you, me, anyone, we have debts, okay? Personal debts, banks, loans, whatsoever, then we must make will. It is mandatory upon us. Otherwise, there will be a dispute. Your heirs will not be able to find out how much you owe to this person or that person, so it will create problems. The one who has Shar'i dues. Shar'i dues means khumus, zakat. If I haven't paid my khumus for this year, if I haven't paid zakat, okay, or there are kafaras upon me, then it is mandatory for me to make the will. The one who is afraid of unfair distribution of her assets. This is the most important one and most relevant one. Here in Canada or in any country, in majority of countries, I'm not talking about all Islamic countries, but in majority of countries, this is the risk for all of us. Unfair distribution. Unfair distribution here means an Islamic way of distribution of your assets. So if you die without a will, then what would happen? What I understand, if you die without a will, then there are two situations. If there is no dispute within your family, everything goes smoothly, then they can settle within themselves. And if it ends up in court or in authorities' hands, then definitely they will appoint somebody as the trustee of all your assets, and then that individual will distribute everything at his or her discretion. So you cannot ensure that your assets are distributed among your heirs according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will. And this is a grave sin in Islam. We need to make sure that our assets are distributed among our heirs as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed. Otherwise, it will be injustice. So this is where the importance of will comes into existence. And the one who has underage kids, and this is perhaps even more important. There are many cases here and there, even to me, some people have brought their cases that the husband passed away and the wife, for example, could not support the kids, so the government has taken them and the government has given the social services, and they have come to me and complained, our kids are fed pork, for example. They are with non-Muslims and they are being fed unauthorized things, let alone of being raised in totally an Islamic way. They are even being fed an Islamic haram food. So this is the consequences of not making the will. If the person who passed away had made the will and had appointed somebody as the guardian of underage kids, of course this situation wouldn't be there. So it is very important, if we have underage kids, we make sure that the guardian of the kids, they are covered in that will. What happens to your assets after death? As long as we are alive, we have full control of our assets. Whoever we want to give, whatever we want to give, we can give, we can gift, okay? But when we die, then these are three situations. When we die, we leave, in fact, real assets. Everything, real asset, I mean here from real asset, whatever we have left, including our home, our bank balance, our cash, everything. So that is our real asset. What would happen to that? Based on Islamic teachings and Islamic jurisprudence, when we die, before our assets are distributed, the debts must be settled. So if we owe any personal debts or any kind of loans, then that should be settled first. Okay? Unsettled mahr. If we haven't paid the dowry, the mandatory gift to our wives when we got married, we need to pay mahr. That is called mandatory gift. So if we haven't paid and that is still due, then that must be paid from our asset, which is called taraka, whatever we have left. And our khumus and zakat. If we owed khumus and zakat, then that must also be paid. However, here's an observation, very important observation. If someone didn't pay khumus or zakat throughout his or her whole life, then after his death, can we go and ask his heirs that you must pay khumus and zakat out of the assets that your father, the deceased person, has left? No. If someone didn't pay khumus at all, then he will lose this provision, this privilege. This privilege is for those who used to pay khumus. But for example, this year they could not pay khumus because their date was not there, or their date was there, they were busy and they could not make it, okay? So they will have this privilege. And Raddul Madalim. Raddul Madalim means if we have harmed somebody. For example, if someone has slapped somebody, then there is a penalty. If you slap somebody and if you slap on the face, then there are double penalties. If you slap somewhere else, then again there is penalty. So, and that depends on the change of color. If it becomes, for example, red, then that is the penalty. If it becomes green, then that is the penalty. If it becomes blue or black, then that is the penalty. So all these are considered under madhalim. Or we have damaged someone's property, so that is also a kind of madhalim. So all these things will be taken out from our assets before it is distributed. And wajib hajj. If we owe wajib hajj, hajj is wajib on me, I have planned to go for hajj, or even I haven't planned to go for hajj, but I do believe in hajj and I haven't been able to make the hajj. So hajj is a shar'i due, and that should be done out of my real assets before dividing. Okay, all these things are settled. Now whatever is left, that should be divided into 3 portions. 1/3 and 2/3. So for 1/3, we have the authority, the permission to make the will. And 2/3, we have no authority. We cannot touch that. So only the wasiyah, the will topic, comes under the category of 1/3 of our assets and our belongings. So when we say assets, we don't mean, in fact, only bank balance, whatever we are leaving. So that includes house, land, gardens, factory, businesses, anything. Okay? So in 1/3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us full permission, and in fact has given us the opportunity to utilize that for whatever reasons we wish. And above all, for building our akhirah. So based on traditions from Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wasalam, this is another charity which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done to you, so you can make your akhirah even better. But it depends on you. As long as you are not distributing that 1/3 in haram act, you are fully allowed to go whatever way you wish. Here are some options. For example, qada salat and fasting. So you may have questions, qada salat and fasting is wajib, so why that shouldn't be paid from the real assets? It is wajibatul badani. Wajibatul badani, they don't fall under that category. So in fact, our qada salat and fasting, it was our responsibility on daily basis to perform that. And when we die, if we have sons, or even one son, if we have different sons, then the eldest son will be responsible to perform our qada, salat and fasting. Again, this privilege is only for those people who used to pray, even on and off. But those people who don't pray at all, it's not the responsibility of their kids or their eldest son to perform their qada prayers or fastings. So this one, we must make will for from our 1/3, that our qaza, salah and fasting should be performed. And kafara. Okay? Kafara means, for example, in the month of Ramadan, we deliberately made our fasting invalid, so there is a kafara. So that kafara should be taken out from 1/3. And relatives not inheriting. So there will be very limited people who will be inheriting. It doesn't matter, for example, you leave $1 million or you leave $1 billion. But there will be very few, very limited people, very specific people who will be inheriting from you. So if you think that there are some other relatives who were good to you or they are in need of money, and you think that they must be supported from your inheritance, then you can utilize 1/3 portion to support them, to help them. Relatives, you want to have more donations. No. Relatives, you want to have more shares. Sorry, no, to have more, yeah. For example, your wife, she will have her own share, we'll discuss later, but you want your wife to get more, okay? Or you want one of your children, one of your daughters, one of your sons who is in need, in genuine need. Rest of them are well off, they are good, okay? So they'll get their shares. But one of them is in immense need of extra support. So you can use 1/3 of your assets to support them, okay? And then 2/3 must be divided according to Islamic laws. You cannot touch that, you cannot customize that. Here is how that 2/3 will be divided. Okay? So this is in fact something really important that you need to focus on. In Islamic inheritance system, now we are moving from will to inheritance system because these two are intertwined, interconnected. We cannot separate them. We have 3 layers of waratha, those people who will inherit you. And each degree has 2 levels, has 2 groups of people. Each group has in fact 2 groups of people in them. So for example, the first group is your parents and your children. So your parents, your children. 2 group in 1 degree or in 1 layer. And then we have second layers. Second layer. What is the second layer? Grandparents or siblings and their children. Your brothers and their children. Grandparents, okay? So that is the second layer. And then we have third layer. Paternal uncle and aunts and their children. Maternal uncle and aunts and their children. So these are 3 layers. It's rare that we end up in third layer or in third group. Even in second group, it's quite rare. So we'll not be focusing in our conversation, in our discussion on these 2 groups. We'll be limiting ourselves with the first group, which is the most common. And a spouse is always included. For example, I have kids and I have children, still my wife will be included. I don't have children, I don't have parents alive after me. My assets will reach to the second group, still my wife is included. It reaches to the third group, still the wife or husband is included. Okay? So it is written, even a single person from the previous group will exclude others. So as long as there is even one person from the first group, parents, children, if there is no one left in your family except your mother, then she will inherit everything. There is no one left in your family except one child. He will inherit everything. Okay? So this is how it works. And the surviving spouse cannot be excluded in any way. Any questions so far? Oh, we are coming to that. We are coming to that. Next slide, please. Yeah, it's covered. Don't worry. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here you go. Here I put some general laws for you to focus and understand. And inshallah, I'll further improve that and then we'll email. So whenever you want to make your will, you just look at the presentation and it will give you all the details that you need. Your father, if you don't have kids, okay, so we are discussing only the first group, father and parents and his spouse, that's it. That is the most common. In 90% cases, that is the applicable. And rest of the groups, they don't come into action. If you don't have kids, then your father will get 2/3, okay? And your mother will get 1/3. And this is something that we need to explain, and you all, alhamdulillah, being a Muslim, you understand that for women there is less share than men. Why? Because women don't have financial liabilities in Islam. All the financial burdens, responsibilities, and liabilities are on the shoulders of men. When a girl is born, as long as she is virgin, she is not married, all her expenses must be fulfilled by her father. And when she is married, all her expenses must be fulfilled by her husband. And when, in case, if she loses her husband, then the sons will be responsible to take care of her. So in fact, there is no financial liabilities on women. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, still out of His grace, He has given them half of the men. Okay? Even though, honestly, in many cases, they don't need anything. This is Islamic system. We cannot separate one thing from the other. If we want to understand Islam, we need to, it is like jigsaw pieces. We need to put everything together. Then it will make sense. So father, if you don't have kids, he will get 2/3. Mother, if you don't have kids, she will get 1/3. Father, if you have kids, will get 1/6. And here, father and mother are equal. Mother also will get 1/6 if you have kids, because this is not a big amount. And wife, if you don't have kids, will get 1/4. Husband, if you don't have kids, will get half. Husband, if you have kids, wife, if you have kids, will get 1/8. And husband, if you have kids, will get 1/4. This is the fundamental. There are some exceptions, but rare, okay? And children. If you don't have parents, because parents are in the same group as children. So if you don't have parents, then everything will go to children after wife's share. Wife's share will be given to her, and then everything will be distributed among children. How? Male children will get twice as the female children. And if you have all female children, then all will inherit equally. If you have male kids only, then all will inherit equally. Children, if you have parents, then after wife and parents share is explained above, okay? All the assets will be divided among them in a way male children receive the double of female children. Okay, is that clear? And here is in fact a pie chart. This is made by some scholars in Iran, and I've seen in fact on alislam.org. Maulana Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi, who is from Toronto, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect him. He has done great work, and he has made all these charts, or probably he has asked somebody to make all these charts. So they are in fact a kind of translation of those charts. I don't know, but they are the same. And whoever makes these charts will be the same, because no one can change anything, okay? So these are 16 charts, 16 cases, which are most common. So, okay, for example, a man dies and he leaves wife, son, and daughter. So wife's share will be how much? 1/8. Okay, 1/8. In this scenario, the man who has died doesn't have parents. Okay, so wife's share will remain the same, 1/8. Okay, and then that will be distributed between son and daughter. Son will take the twice, and daughter will take, in this case, 29.16%. Percentage you can make according to your own discretion. And for example, the second one is son, wife, daughter. Oh no, this one. Yeah. Husband, son, and daughter. Wife dies, okay? So husband will take 1/4. And son will take 50%, and daughter will take 25%. Okay? And in the third chart, so these charts are all there, and inshallah you will be able to see them, and I'll send the presentation to Hussaini Association, and if you are not registered, then you can register, and I'll improve the presentation, inshallah. You can have this, everything in one file. So these are the cases. And here's something really important. I just picked it up because it's not discussed anywhere easily. You cannot find this one anywhere easily. But as I was doing a lot of researches, so I found it out. This is very important, as we have a lot of people who are muqallid of Ayatollah Khamenei. Most of Maraja, including Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Khoi, and almost all other Maraja, they believe that wife will inherit only from movable assets. So what are movable assets? For example, your money, cash money or bank money, or when we have a house, when you purchase a house, there are two things that you are purchasing. One is the land and one is the house. So wife will inherit from the house, but not from the lot or from the land. Or you have, for example, a factory. So the equipments, all the things which are there, wife will inherit from that, but not from the land. So in one single word, wife will not inherit from the lands. And again, the philosophy or the hikmah of this law could be, wife is going to get married to someone else. So she will have, in fact, everything for herself. Okay? So if she is the only person left, then she will get, in fact, her share, which is 1/8. But in 1/8, what is included? We are talking about in 1/8, which is wife's share, what is included? Okay? Sometimes she will take 1/4, and sometimes she will take 1/8. Okay? If someone dies and that individual doesn't have, in fact, children, then wife will take how much? 1/4. And if someone dies and he has children, then wife will get how much? 1/8. Okay? So the point is, what is included in that 1/4 or in that 1/8? We are discussing this point. Based on majority of Maraje, including Ayatollah Sistani, she will inherit from all the movable things. She will inherit from everything except from the land, whether that is house land or agriculture's land or factories land or any kind of land. Okay, so she will inherit from everything. So when you are, for example, making your will and writing for your wife, her share, you need to calculate, for example, the land, how much is the worth of land and how much is the building's value, or whatever house includes or whatever that factory includes. So you need to put according to that in wife's share in your will. But Ayatollah Khamenei, as we have a lot of muqallideen of Ayatollah Khamenei, he says, and it is his statement, it is his opinion, that wife will inherit from both. She will not inherit the land itself, but she will inherit the land's price. So for example, if a person has died, has passed away, and that person doesn't have kids, so wife will inherit from 1/4. 1/4 will be wife's. So 1/4, when we are giving her, we are not giving her only bank accounts or only the house, the structures price, but we'll include in that share the price of land as well. Yeah, everything. But non-movable things, she will not inherit itself, but she will inherit the price of that thing. Okay, so those are the muqallideen of Ayatollah Khamenei. They should consider this difference. So here, in fact, it will be the testator, okay, the one who is making the will. He or she will make according to his or her marja. Okay. How to increase daughters and or wife's share? So I understand there are a lot of people who are really concerned that they want to make the shares of all their kids equal. And they want to give something really big to their wives. So how can you do that? It's very easy. There is no issue. No issue at all. In fact, there are 3 ways. Number 1, as I mentioned in the beginning, when as long as we are alive, we have full control of our wealth and riches. Okay? So you can do heba to your wife. For example, you have 2 houses. You say, okay, I don't know what would happen to you, and you are not in the age of marrying with someone else after my death. So I don't want to do anything wrong to you. You have been loyal to me. So husband says to wife, okay, this house is yours. And you write that house in her name, and she accepts that, then she is the owner. And no one can touch that. That will be out of your taraka, out of your assets, once you have registered that in her name. And she has accepted that. Okay? Use 1/3 portion, which we already discussed. Okay. And the third option is seek the male children's consent. For example, you have 2 sons and 1 daughter, and you want your daughter to get the same as your sons. So you discuss this matter with your sons and seek their consent. And once they give the consent and you make your will according to that, then that consent will remain forever. That will be permanent, irrevocable. Okay? So these are 3 ways you can make fairness as you think. Okay? Yes. No. The joint one, if you have joint, and that is really joint, your wife has half and you have half. She has contributed half and you have contributed half. Then after the death of such person, of course, half will not be his asset, his taraka. It is automatically wife's property. So that will be untouched. Okay? That will be totally untouched. Then we need to, in fact, come to a conclusion. What percentage, for example, my wife's share is, she's earning some money and I'm working and we both are contributing, we both paid down payments and we both are contributing to our mortgage, then we need to come to, in fact, a kind of commonality or understanding. For example, 10%, 20%, if that is wife's, that will remain untouched. Yeah, that's why, in fact, we are discussing this issue. And that's why making will is extremely important in this environment. It is even wajib. I can say it is even, in fact, wajib to make will in Canada. If we are living in Canada, it is wajib. Otherwise, you cannot control. There are a lot of things. And majority of people, they don't care about these things. But a moment must care about these things. Because when we, like in our lifetime, we cannot do any injustice to anyone. So if I'm doing injustice after my death, then that is the same thing. So if everything goes to my wife after my death, okay, then that is 100% un-Islamic. If my parents are alive, they have their shares, and they are being deprived. Who is responsible for that? I'm responsible for that. My kids, for example, I have male and female kids. They are getting the same amount. That is unacceptable from Islamic perspective. Who is responsible for this injustice? I'm responsible. So that's why making will is extremely important. Yes, if that is in fact, if that is matrimonial house, Brother Hashim, can you come here? So we have Brother Hashim, he's mashallah expert, and he's brought his cards as well. So we'll have inshallah the answers of legal questions. So if the house is, so if the house is matrimonial house and there is no way for you to make any kind of tweeting in that, and that is supposed to go to your wife, then the other option is you seek the consent of your heirs. Okay? Yeah. But you need to give her. If you have, yeah. So in fact, if that is the case, and so this is another option, as we've written here. So either you seek the consent of the children, or the other option is you make it heba to your wife in your lifetime. Okay, this house belongs to you. Okay? If you haven't given her, then
she's already crossing the limit according to Islamic law.
Yeah.
Then she should be getting anyone's heirs what you want.
Yes. And she should be distributing the rest according to Islamic Sharia. Yeah. To the heirs. To, for example, to the kids. Okay. If you have heba, is not something that you just make in your intention. You need to say that, and it should be documented, or at least it should be said, and it should be understood. Okay? So if you have done so, so these are in fact the ways you can avoid those consequences.
Technically, it's a question for you. If the man said, you know what, I'm buying a house and I want your name to be there, so technically he's giving a hiba at that time, as the brother here said. So even religiously, from the religion side, he already gave her that even without saying it. So it's very important to know if the house is in both names, they are both shared. It's a shared house. If it's only under his name, then that's different. But the Canadian law will do it both in the same way. So even if the house is only under his name, it's for both. That's Canadian laws, right?
But that is not in fact sufficient. Okay? Even though that is based on Canadian law, but when I die, Canadian law doesn't make mandatory that we follow their system. If we want to go according to our religion, we are welcome. So even though in general situations, once I die, my house will be given to my wife. But if my wife knows all the Islamic laws and she wants to go according to Islam, she will not be barred, she will not be stopped, okay? So in fact, it is her responsibility to distribute the shares according to Islamic law, unless I have made the heba in her name, or unless I have sought the consents of my children that this house will be given to my wife. Okay.
If you want to go over that 1/6 of the limit, and you have kids, would that not be permissible? So you have parents, you
Yeah.
have kids, and their maximum, is it maximum? Is it 1/6?
Yes, 1/6.
You can't go over that.
You cannot go over that from 2/3. But if you want to give more, you can utilize your 1/3. Okay? Or if you want to give them, for example, half of your belongings, you can do in your lifetime. Yeah.
What if someone has more than one wife?
If someone has more than one wife, then again, each of them will take 1/8. 1/8. Yeah. Yes. Because, sorry, when we want to do heba, then we don't need to seek anyone's consent, okay, in our lifetime. But when we are writing in our will, when we are writing something in our will, it means that the ownership will shift after my death. So when I die, then the ownership will shift from me to my kids, okay? Therefore, if I'm writing in my will for my wife something extra, then I need to seek the consent of my kids, because they will be the owner after my death. And based on Islamic heba system, once you do heba something to someone who is your blood relative, there is no way you can revoke that. So for example, you gave your whole house as gift, as riba, to someone who is your blood relative. And after a while, you know, okay, I'm regretful. This person was very good to me, and now he is not that much good to me, so I'm taking that house back. No, you cannot take. There are 5 scenarios. When you do the heba, you cannot take it back. When you do heba, for example, to someone or to an organization in the name of Allah, then whatever you donated, you cannot take it back. For example, someone comes and says to Hussaini, I'm donating $1 million. And then after a few days, he comes and says, no, I want my money back. There is no way. Something which is donated in the name of Allah cannot be taken back. And something which is donated to one of the blood relatives cannot be taken back. Okay. Seek the male children's consent. It could be, in fact, for all. For all. If there are female children, then their consent also will be required, because they will also inherit. Yeah. No, underage children, no. When they are 15 plus, only then you can seek their consent. Yes, that is under following the order of Allah because they have given you the consent. Okay. So in fact, they are doing heba. The kids are doing heba. Okay. Either I am doing heba or kids are doing heba. So in fact, in that policy, we need to follow the Islamic system. Okay, otherwise, again, it will be injustice. When we are taking insurance, we need to write in the insurance the same amounts which is mentioned in Islam to avoid any consequences. Okay. What I have heard, Brother Hashim will elaborate on that, but what I have heard that when we die, if we make our kids our heirs and they take the possession of our belongings, then they will be liable for taxations. But if we make everything in our wife's name, in our will, and we write a separate will for our wife, but the situation is how much you trust your wife in this situation. So if you trust your wife, then you write everything in your wife's name in your legal will, and then write another document separately where you specify Islamic portions. Then when your wife becomes the owner of your house or all your belongings, then there is no tax, as I have heard.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that exactly, the exact amount of taxes, but usually the taxes would be like the amount that's earned on top of the house price that he bought initially. So let's say, for example, he bought the house for $500,000, and then when he dies, the house is worth $550. So the taxes will be on that $50,000 extra. Exactly. But from the religious portion, how it's going to be done, probably Maulana would know better.
So,
Should be.
from religious perspective, that will be included, in fact, in the real asset. Okay, as I mentioned in the beginning, when we die, we have real assets, then we have 1/3, and then we have 2/3. Okay, from real asset, all our debts, all our dues will be taken out. Then whatever is left will be divided into 3 portions. In one portion, we can make the wasiyah, and the other 2 portions, they will follow the Islamic inheritance system. Still there will be no issue because we are not putting any amount, we are putting portions, percentage. Okay, this one will take this much of percentage. The sequence is, in fact, if we can avoid, then why not? We should try to avoid. But if there is no other way, and we have to pay the taxes, then the taxes will be paid first. They will come under dues and debts. So all the dues and debts are cleared and settled. Then it comes to our heirs, and they will. Then the time will come for the 1/3, whatever we have wished to be done, and then the time will come for the 2/3. This is the order. Okay. Yeah. Yes, that is what I have heard, but I haven't checked. That is what I have heard. If everything is inherited by your wife, then there is no tax, because she is by default, in fact, an owner of your belongings. Okay? Yes, you need to confirm that, please. Okay? And here is a very important question. Can a person during his or her lifetime allocate their whole assets to one of their children or relatives? This is a fiqhi masala. For example, I have some kids who are not of my choice. I don't like them. I don't agree with them. Okay? And I have one child who I really love, and he follows my instructions. He is serving me, he is helping me. Are these enough grounds to deprive my kids from my inheritance? Not at all. Okay? If a child kills his father or mother, then that individual will be deprived. Okay? So there are 2-3 options when a child can be deprived of the inheritance. Okay, but in this case, in my lifetime, I can do technically. But if there are disputes, if there is a potential risk that there will be a kind of bitterness among my kids for this decision, then it is haram for me to do so. Okay. Hiba partially can be done, but not everything, not 100%. Okay? And this is a term which is called in Islam habwa. Habwa means father's special belongings. So when a person dies, the eldest son will inherit Quran, ring, and used or even unused cloth, but they should not be, in fact, they should be ready to be worn. Okay? So Quran, ring, used cloth, or the cloth which are ready to be used, which can be worn, these clothes and these things will be inherited by the eldest son. So they should be taken out from the general inheritance. No, they don't contradict, because heba is that something you are doing by yourself. You are doing in your... But there are cases that you want to give something in your lifetime, and there are situations you cannot give at this stage, but you want to make it after you die. So for example, there is a property, you are living in that, and you want to keep that in your name, and you are using that. Okay, for example, there is something really valuable. There is a car, you are using that, okay? And you cannot survive without that. So if you donate it in your lifetime, how can you survive? But you want to donate something after your death.
You cannot say, okay, after my death, this would be a hiba.
No. Heba's option is only when you are alive. Okay? If they don't give you consent, then you cannot. Then you can use only 1/3 option. Okay? No. Yes. 2/3 must be divided according to Allah's laws. Okay. A wrong practice. We are approaching the time of Salah, and we are concluding that as well. A wrong practice. This is unfortunately very common wrong practice within our Indo-Pak community. It is perceived that after the demise of mother, all the jewelries should go to her daughters. That is absolutely unacceptable. Jewelry or whatsoever she owned, that must be distributed according to Islamic law. And there are a lot of issues, in fact, our community don't understand, and they are committing sins, and they are making wrong decisions because they don't know. One of them is this. Which one will go first? Will or inheritance? Your 1/3 or 2/3? Okay? Which one will go first? 1/3. First, your wishes are granted, your wishes are fulfilled from 1/3. What about if you have made some wishes or some donations or lists of jobs for which 1/3 is not sufficient? What would happen then? No, there is no option from 2/3 unless the heirs allow. If your children or those who are inheriting, if they allow, then it can go from 2/3. Otherwise, that is their milkiyah, that is their property. We cannot touch that. So we'll limit to 1/3. So whatever we can do in 1/3. Whatever we cannot do, we'll not do. So for example, if there are some wajib acts and there are some mustahab acts in the list, so wajib acts will be given the priority. Because Allah says, min ba'di wasiyatin yusi biha udain. So inheritance should be divided after wasiyah. Formal will and holographic. Now, brother, it is yours. We have around 10 minutes.
Oh, that's great. There are two types of wills. To make the type legal,
Can you move the slides?
to make the formal will legal, there's two types. It's either holographic, that you write your own will with your handwriting and you sign it. So that makes a very strong will, it will be valid. And the other one is the formal will. So you can type it using a computer, and then two people has to sign it. They have to witness you signing the will as well. So they have to write a letter that, we saw this person signing his own will, regardless if they read what's in the will. So they don't really have to read the will and know what are you saying in it. They just have to see you personally signing it. There is something called living will that's mostly known in other provinces but not Alberta. It's very important to have a look at it. Here they don't have something called living will, and in that case what I mean by living will, for someone is incapable of taking decision while he's still alive but he's not capable, so he should appoint someone to take care of his stuff. If he has a house, he has bills to pay. For example, he's on life support. If there is no one, then most likely the hospital will take the decision on that. On the Islamic way, if he's on life support, there's no way the Islamic way will allow him to take the life support from him. So probably Maulana will talk about that if he has time.
Just going back to the witness, do they have to be at our distance, or because if not, that's a different thing?
They have to see him signing, so they have to be in the same room.
Who would be your witness? Could that be your family, or they have to be
No, they have to be someone that will not inherit from you. So this is the own law. So a friend should be fine. If a family member that's not inheriting, we're talking about the legal Canadian will. We're not talking about religious. Yes. It's very important to know that by not writing a religious will, if someone died and he has wife and children, if all the children are from the same wife that he has, she will take everything. So if she's a good lady, that's fine. You're not going to have a problem. And it's the same thing if the lady dies and her all children from one husband, that she's still married to him, he will get everything. So the children won't get anything. The parents will not get anything at the same time. So I think, as Maulana said here, that in Canada you should write a will, just to be safe.
And as it is mentioned here, in fact, there are two options. The very straightforward and easiest one is we write in our own handwriting. But of course, there are some consequences in that. Could be interpretation issue and all this stuff. So whatever
If you're good in English, you can just write it with your own handwriting and sign it. To make it stronger, you can get two people to witness that you're signing the same will. To make it more stronger, you can get it notarized or signed at a commissioner of oath.
That is the easiest option, in fact. And I've given you the papers that you have. It includes, in fact, almost everything which you require for your Islamic will. So if you want to write your Islamic will, you can have that in front of you. And if you want to write on that, I can, in fact, email you the soft copy. रियाज भाई एक और पेपर था ना उसका जो अलग से था सेपरेट वो है
It is valid in Canada, yes.
there is a separate paper as well.
Yes, it should be. It's valid at the court if you sign it yourself and you wrote it with your own handwriting.
Yes, it is valid. So it's not a big deal. People think that it is something really horrible, really difficult. No, it's not. It's very easy. You can write whatever you want to write. But when you want to write your will, you need to follow Islamic instructions. So you need to know who inherits what and where are your roles. You cannot make a will beyond 1/3 of your portions of your assets. So you need to have, in fact, two lists. One list which gives you the details of all your assets, and the other list you need to know how much you owe, your dues and your debts and all these things. So if you have these two lists, then half of the work you have done. And now you need to figure out the Islamic laws, which I have given you, in fact, a lot of details. So still, if you struggle, then I'm here to help you. You just give me how many people are in your family, and I will give you, in fact, the exact percentage or exact portion to write the will. And when it comes to 1/4, it is your own choice. You want to write, for example, your khala, your mamu, who are not inheriting from you. You can write it for your brothers or for your sisters, whosoever you wish. Okay, so this is something really easy. Organ donation, no, it's not allowed in Islam, in fact, organ donation. There are some situations when it is allowed, but that is another very slippery area. So you need to opt out for organ donation. Sometimes if you don't opt out, they assume that you have given the permission. So when I go, for example, recently I needed to change my driving license. So they asked me, what is your perspective? Would you want? I said, no, opt me out. So now I'm safe. But if someone doesn't opt out, then probably when they die, they take the organs if they wish. Yeah. So that's good. Sorry, I couldn't get you. What is mandatory for everybody? I think if you have not opted it out, but you have the option to opt it out, it's not something that easy. Okay? And here are some more points. If you make your children your heirs, they will end up, I've already discussed that. And this is a very useful website, shiawills.org. This is prepared by World Federation, and Council of European Jamaas for Shia Isna Ashari Muslims. So if you go on that, they have in fact like immigration documents. When you want to make an application, everything comes in front of you and you just need to follow the instructions. So you follow the instructions, they will ask you some details, you give them the details, they will ask you how many kids you are leaving behind, how many wives you have, how many brothers, sisters you have, whatsoever, okay? And then they will give you calculated everything handy. So that's very easy. It's absolutely haram. Whatever they will be eating, they will be purchasing. If they are purchasing clothes and they are praying in that cloth, their salah will be invalid. If they are going for Hajj, their Hajj is batil. So that's why I'm saying it is a very important topic. So even though they can take from Canadian law perspective, but if they are Muslim, they need to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's law. Allah's law is always beyond all the laws and regulations. And Canadian law is not in fact contradicting us. Canadian law is not forcing them to take. Canadian law is supporting them, whatever they wish. Yeah, we already discussed. We discussed in the beginning. You are a little bit late. So khums, yes. But whose khumus? If there is a person who never paid khumus, then it is not obligation on kids to deprive themselves of all their belongings. From the inheritance, if it is in wasiya, then that will be taken into account. But of course, still there should be some limits. I'm not sure, but there should be some limits. So someone didn't pay his whole life any khumus, for example, and now whatever he is leaving, even that will run short. Okay? So can that individual make wasiya? His wasiya will be applicable only to 1/3. Okay? So whatever goes beyond the 1/3, that must be that is not his. That is the property of the heirs. So of course his wasiya will be restricted and 20 years, for example, he is in debt of khumus, then those 20 years will be calculated according to 1/3. As long as they are sufficient, that's fine. His khumus will be paid off. But if it goes beyond 1/3, then it will still remain in his account. No, it will be enforced after committing suicide, after attempting suicide. So a person attempts for suicide and he is on deathbed, for example. Now he wants to make will. That will not be accepted. But if he has made will, for example, 2 years ago, and now he is committing suicide, then his previous will be in effect.
That's a very interesting question. Everything is possible, depending on the lawyers, on how much money there is, how much the children are willing to fight. It does raise a problem, but if he writes a holographic will, for example, and he has two witnesses to sign it, it was signed in presence of a commission of oath or notary public, it would be extremely hard for anything to be changed. But I would like to mention something here very important before we proceed, because we don't have much time. For the will, if any circumstances changed, and for example, you wrote the will, and then you get married, the will is void, because that is considered a change in your circumstances. The whole will be void, so you have to do another one. For example, if you're married and you get divorced, the will has to be changed. If you buy a house, you have to change the will. So you have to be very careful that you're always updating your will. Because once you're writing the will and you have a wife, you're giving her a portion. If later on, after 1 year, you don't have a wife anymore, what's going to happen to that portion?
And that is